So I was going to start my daily recordings, and it turns out Boris Johnson and Dishi Rishi have been set to receive. It looks like Boris Johnson and Boris Ronson got a cold still. Boris Johnson and Sunak are set to receive fines for COVID-19 breaches. Now this is wild because this confirms it. We were always wondering what would actually happen here, and the simple fact is, instead of interviewing Boris Johnson, which people were outraged about, they fined him. He's been given a fixed penalty notice. Same with Rishi Sunak. Also, Boris Johnson's wife, Carrie Simmons, she's also been fined, from what we've read. And it's just wild, isn't it? I don't know how people can justify it. I was going to have a video come out today at 4:15 talking about how Tories are desperate for people to move on from Partygate, because now they've moved on to, what do you expect them to do now? Resign over this? When there's a war in Ukraine, etc. They don't say war in Ukraine, they say when we're at war and all these other things are happening. Yes, I expect him to resign. They talk about having an indulgent leadership contest. Like, you guys have had so many leadership contests over the past 5 years. What makes it different? Talking about we're at war, we're not at war, and prime ministers have changed during the war period. The most famous example being Sir Winston Churchill, when they got rid of Neville Chamberlain. So that's a joke argument. So what they could do is, because Parliament goes on recess over the summer, is Boris Johnson doesn't immediately resign, but resigns in the summer period, and they can do their little Tory leadership election thing and they get out of the way. Now, I don't expect him to immediately resign, but what I'd ask is he resigns in the summer. That's what I'd want. So yeah, the number 10 and the Chancellor have today received fixed penalty notifications that the Met Police intend to issue them with fixed penalty notices. It's just crazy, isn't it? It's crazy. I think they can try and appeal them. I imagine there'll be a lot of people who might try and appeal their penalty notices depending on the amount they've been fined, Johnson and Sunak, because I've heard it's £50 fine so far. We've heard stories about Boris Johnson being broke. I can't imagine he'd be able to afford a 10k fine. Starmer, I've seen Starmer post about it, calls for Johnson and Sunak to quit after the Partygate fines. Boris Johnson and Sunak have broken the law repeatedly and lied to the British public, which is true, because remember they said there were no parties, all guidance were followed. There was no gatherings, all of this stuff, all guidance were followed. He's lied to the House, and he can't deny it anymore. He's tried to, rope-a-dope everyone, say, oh, you got to wait for the investigation and blah, blah, blah. When, maybe Cressida Dick does actually have a slight shred of dignity, ever so slight, or this is a parting shot of the Tories, because, they didn't have to do this. They should have done this, but they didn't. The police didn't have to do this. They weren't going to do this initially, and I think this is her parting shot at them. I genuinely do. But, I think these two have to go now, and, Sunak has had a rough old week. Extremely tough, and not tough because he's brought on himself with all the non-dom stuff coming out about his wife, his green card status, and all these other things. He's had a very, he's moved out apparently of number 10, I think he's moved out of, and he's had a rough old time. But the simple fact is, they broke the law. They were there at these gatherings. The gatherings were illegal, and you've got to think, right? If you were a person who lost a loved one, right, and you couldn't say bye to them, that you couldn't go to the funeral, they had to do it virtually, right? And these guys were having a party in the meantime. Like, that's, if you still support the Conservative Party after this, or somehow think Labour are worse, then you're an idiot. You're an absolute idiot, and you're what's wrong with the country. People say the Tories are what's wrong with this country. Is people who vote for a political party that will openly laugh at them, they're what's wrong with this country, honestly. That 33 to 36% of people who would still vote Tory are what's wrong with this country. Those shy Tories who won't be public about it in the opinion polls, they're what's wrong with this country. But we go on. We've got Boris Johnson has just claimed a historic first, the first sitting Prime Minister to have broken the law, which isn't necessarily true because Prime Ministers previously have broken international law before. Looking at you, Tony. Some tried to dismiss Partygate as an irrelevance, especially now the Prime Minister's stock is rising with Tory MPs over Ukraine, but many people still deeply care that they stuck to the laws, yet those who set them didn't. And we missed, so much time in, our families' lives, really stuck at home, especially the people who lived alone. They had it really hard, honestly. Public fury of earlier this year may have subsided, but it hasn't gone away, and I think it's time now. It's time for people to ask. Carrie Johnson, I thought she kept a second name, apparently not. Carrie Johnson has also been fined over Partygate breaches. Spokesperson said, in the interest of transparency, Johnson can confirm she has been Miss Johnson can confirm she has been notified. She'll receive a fixed penalty notice. She has not yet received any further details about the nature of the fixed penalty notice. And at the end of the day, we have to remember he told Parliament, all rules were followed. The Met Police say otherwise. He could say, well, I thought I was following the rules. Remember what he said, like, I didn't realise people were having a party. It was a work event. He's going to plead ignorance here, and we can't let him do that. We cannot let him plead ignorance. He knew exactly what he was doing. Some of these people were belting karaoke and all this stuff. They knew it was a party. His former ethics advisor got fined as well. It's just madness. But, it's time now. He's got to go. Sunak has to go as well, which I don't think Sunak will care that much about, apart from the fact that he won't be the first minority prime minister, first ethnic minority. But, I've been seeing some people post about these fines. I haven't seen any fundamental evidence until today, which is the spokesperson has basically admitted they're going to be fined. So we'll see what happens, if they can hold him accountable. It's happened in a week where there's no PMQs this week. Parliament's still on recess. I think they're back next week, I'm going to say. So, I can't wait to see what happens. But this is where Labour have to go full court press, call for his resignation, and all the excuses that they give. We're still in the middle of a pandemic, which is true, but you guys said it's over, and you guys aren't doing anything to help anyways, to help reduce the impact of it. We're at war. No, we're not. And they need to use the Churchill example. Boris Johnson loves talking about Sir Winston Churchill. This is how Winston Churchill became Prime Minister. But the only thing is, do you know who's going to be our next Prime Minister? Liz Truss. So, potentially. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. Sorry, it's a bit more of a rush video, but it's breaking news, in the last half hour. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Support the channel on Patreon if you can. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one.